never come through those avenues.
Right.
And by your experience, I know when you came here, when the ships came in and they powered up, I noticed one thing is I go, "Did you see that?" And you go, "I felt it." And you
right.
And that's the key. You feel the connection. You feel the bliss and the energy, the ecstatic energy that comes with those connections.
Well,
and
that's what I always tell people. I said that I just personally can't imagine that the U.S. Air Force has any kind of a technology that's going to make you feel that way.
No. And getting back to your books, I've seen the same thing, is that, you're revealing all of this new information that does tap into all these stargates that seem to hook up with other star nations and their symbols, and which I really want to get into is your latest book, Freedom's Gate and the Lost Symbol. I haven't had a chance to read it yet, so I'll have to feign a little bit of ignorance about this, but I have followed your work, and it's been awesome and very revealing. But if you wanted to give us a little synopsis of the book, that would be great.
Yeah, well, let me tell you what happened there, because I feel that my experience at your place at the ECETI ranches was critical, really, to being able to understand what's going on, in particular in the symbolism in the dome of the U.S. Capitol, which is what Freedom's Gate is about. I mean, there's all kinds of books about the spiritual layout, the sacred geometry of D.C., the Freemasonic overlay of Washington, D.C., the monuments, the memorial, so on and so forth. But none of these books ever really got into the Capitol itself, or in particular the dome of the U.S. Capitol and the incredible artwork that's in there. And what you see when you go into the dome of the Capitol is this amazing painting by Constantino Brumidi, who is a Vatican artist. The painting is called The Apotheosis of George Washington. And what it portrays is George Washington as a deity, as a resurrected being, as an enlightened being. He is portrayed on a rainbow, surrounded by the 5 pagan deities of alchemy. And furthermore, what he's shown doing is sitting on a rainbow as this deified being. And the word apotheosis, the title of the painting, is Greek, meaning to deify or to glorify. And what I found in my research on the painting is that a couple of the experts, and there aren't many that have really written about it, apart from Dan Brown, who came along and wrote his book, The Lost Symbol, and featured it earlier this year, and we can talk about that too. But most of them just kind of look at it and say, okay, yeah, so here's Washington on a rainbow. Apotheosis means to deify. And yes, there are these pagan deities that surround Washington, but they never really made the connection that, well, wait a minute, there's a profound spiritual message that's embedded or encoded within this painting. And what opened it up for me was recognizing that when in Christian art, when they portray the resurrected Jesus sitting on his throne, he's portrayed exactly the same way. He's portrayed sitting on a rainbow. And the connection that I made that was really kind of surprising to the people at the Capitol, including the curator of the U.S. Capitol, Dr. Barbara Wallenan, was that not only is Washington portrayed on a rainbow as a deity, and not only is Jesus in his resurrected form portrayed on a rainbow, but also the Tibetans who portray their lamas who have achieved what they call the rainbow body, the ultimate enlightenment for humankind, are also portrayed in exactly the same way. And I remember coming up there to the ranch and talking with you after that and saying, well, now, wait a minute, James, when you're talking about some of these craft that you see in the skies over the mountain there and what people experience, you describe that you have the 2 types of craft. You have the solid metallic kind, and then you also have the biological craft. And it seemed to me that you made the connection as well, that it's possible that the biological craft, the ones that power up, could actually be biological or living beings. Is that correct?
Oh, definitely. From my understanding is that is that even the Vedic scriptures talk about this. They said some of the ships are physical, some are energy ships, and I know in order to jump the dimensions that your ship has to be a biological ship in order to get into the higher dimensions. But because your ship goes through an ascension process, and then they have beings themselves they have ships that are magnetized light ships, and these Merkaba vehicles, which are basically what you'd probably call those rainbow bodies. They're beings themselves that travel in a light body, and their light body is their ship, and they seem to have the ability to manifest, if they choose, drop their vehicle all the way down into the physical and in a big flash of light manifest. And I know there's a lot of teachings about this. Babaji is very adept at doing that, but I believe anybody who has ascended and actually taken the body with them has that ability. And there's probably quite a few people we don't even know about it, and there's probably whole civilizations of beings that have this capability.
Well, let me make this point then, because and I'm glad you affirmed that and confirmed it, because I knew that's what you had said, but I just wanted to hear you say it again. Because when I'm in the Capitol and I'm looking up at Washington and saying, well, wait a minute, they're portraying him as one of these ascended beings. And that must mean that what he is modeling for us is the true meaning of freedom and liberty. I mean, forget all this crap that we think about. True freedom, true liberty is enlightenment. It's achieving the rainbow body. It's joining this civilization. So there are these 5 pagan gods that surround Washington, which all have alchemical connections, which is very important. But also surrounding Washington are 13 maidens, and they all have stars on their heads. And so when you're with the guides in the Capitol and you're walking around, they say, yeah, and so when you look up and you see Washington, those 13 maidens with stars on their heads, those represent the original 13 colonies. And I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense, because this isn't an earthly scene. Washington is portrayed in the heavens. He's on a rainbow. He's portrayed as an ascended being. So what could those 13 star maidens represent? And so I went back into my Tibetan research, and I had remembered that the Tibetans teach that the rainbow body teaching didn't originate on Earth. In Tibet, they teach that it's taught in 13 star systems in addition to our own. And what I began to wonder is it possible that what this painting in codes represents is that Earth, our star system, Sol, is a member of a quote-unquote federation of 14 star systems in total where the rainbow body teaching is taught.
It totally makes sense. One of the masters that his name's Max Christensen, who teaches Kunlun, and we were studying this, and it's a very ancient Tibetan technique that came out of the Kunlun temples, and it's about 2,000 years old, just released, and a very powerful technique. It's very simple too, but there's a lot more to it. But the basics of it are very simple, and we were tracing it back, and I was talking what I know, and we were sharing stories, and basically what they traced this back to was Egypt. And it goes all the way back to Egypt, and Egypt goes back to Atlantis and Lemuria, and Atlantis and Lemuria go back to the Pleiades. They were the Pleiadian colonies that other star nations joined in on. And so it's just all tying in, and when you're talking about this ascension process, when you do the Kunlun, we're having people actually vanishing in the classes. And we're taking photographs of it, too, where people are here 1 minute and then gone. And there's just a space there in their chair, and then they're back again. And you can see a outline of their form. And some people you can see right through them and see the chair right through them with a faint outline of their form. And it seems to be a common occurrence happening here lately. It's been going on for quite a while. I had it happening with myself quite a bit, but now it's happening with a lot of students. And so it is all tying in together, and we are starting to, tie the dots together and figure out that there is a science behind this and actually a spiritual practice to it. And day by day we're understanding more of this and experiencing more of it?
Well, I'm absolutely convinced of it, and I'm also convinced that the U.S. Capitol encodes this same message. And that's mind-blowing because it says, well, wait a minute, and we have to really look beyond our earthly concerns here. And to me, it's very inspiring to think that the possibility that Sol, our star system, is indeed connected with these other star systems, and that it suggests to me that if we are part of this grouping of star systems, one, I wondered if these 13 maidens that I'm describing with the stars on their heads, they hold a banner in their hand. And it suggested to me that the words on this banner might in fact be the name of this federation. And the words on the banner are the words e pluribus unum, out of many, one. And what a beautiful name for a federation of star systems, because what it suggested to me is that, well, if we are a member of these star systems, you're only as strong as your weakest link. Mm-hmm. You would have to hypothesize that we would probably be the weak link in this grouping of star systems. Mm-hmm. And this would in part account for other beings coming here and having an interest in us in hopes of bringing us into a position of greater strength, spiritually speaking.
Mm-hmm. It seems to go both ways, maybe out of the many become one, like the many finally realized that the Creator's omnipresent within all creation, or you could say out of the one came the many. We all came from the same source.
Yeah.
And go either way with it. But I do feel that is what we're undergoing right now, is this huge transformation, and that's what the star nations are telling me, is that, they talk almost biblical when you hear them talk. They talk about God is coming, it's a frequency, it's a force. They said it's a grand accelerator. It's going to accelerate the awakening healing process. The karmic reaction is going to be accelerating. They said it's uncovering everything. The apocalypse really means the great uncovering.
Right.
And so they say this old program or this old archetype, that's based on greed and separation and domination is going down. It's being disassembled by these new energies.
Yeah, and I agree with that, and I think that's certainly part of what has to happen. And one of the things that I've encountered since writing the Freedom's Gate book and talking about that is the incredible cynicism about Washington, which is pretty much well-deserved, but at the same time, we can't turn our backs on that. I think we have to transform the existing systems, the existing structures on this planet, instead of just kind of wanting to throw them out. And so I think that's important. And the message here is that, well, already in place here is recognition of this greater reality. A second thing that I'm personally interested in, I did want to ask you about, see if you can help me with this, is that the Tibetans don't list these other 13 star systems where the rainbow body is taught. At least I haven't been able to find it. But when you just go back into sacred myth or scriptures from around the world, you can pretty well come up with at least half a dozen of these star systems. I mean, you got to be talking Sirius, the Pleiades, Ursa Major, Orion, Cygnus. That's 5. What do you think? I mean, what might some of the others be?
Well, you've got the Andromedans, and you've got the Arcturians. I'm trying to think of all the different ones. I mean, I've seen beings that they've come here, and I asked them where they're from, and they said it doesn't matter. And I said why? And they said you have no reference points. They said we're not even in your dimension.
That's funny because I feel that way even asking the question of myself. It's like, well, it really doesn't matter. Why do you want to know what the other 13 are? I mean, it's just they are.
Well, yeah. I mean, I know for a fact that if you go down the scale, I know you've got the Andromedans, the Arcturians, and the Sirians. There's an Orion Council of Light and the Pleiadians. There's several others there those are the main ones that we connect with, and then there does seem to be out of Orion. There does seem to be a group or that these systems also have some small groups coming out of there that are regenerate as well, and mainly out of the Orion system, from what I hear. So they have